Okay.
Gillette, we're going to go ahead and let Ruth go ahead and get started. Oh, nope, that doesn't work. Hi, Gillette. I'm going to go ahead and let Ruth get started, okay?
Okay, my name is Ruth Larson. Can you hear me over there in Gillette?
Yeah.
Okay. I am the Director of Counseling and ADA Services here on Sheridan campus. The person over in Gillette campus who does my job is Susan Surge, and I'm sure you all know Susan. I was asked today to do a presentation kind of dealing with safety on campus, emergency procedures, those kinds of things. So I'm taking a lot of from my presentation that I've done before, responding to distressed and disruptive students. Thad just sat on this maybe a week ago, so sorry, Thad. So the main thing that we want to talk about is learning to recognize the difference between distressed students and disruptive students. So there is definitely an overlap between distressed students and disruptive students, but they're very, very different. So when I think of disruptive students, I think of students who come in with some behaviors like texting during class the whole time, being late for class, maybe getting into arguments with teachers, those kinds of things. And I think about things on a continuum. So from texting during class on one end of the extreme to the other end of the extreme of threatening physical violence, and then all of these behaviors falling somewhere on that continuum. So when we think about disruptive behavior, we're looking at violations of class and office expectations and rules, like a person coming in carrying a sword. Okay, that could legitimately be a distressed student, but right now what we're looking at is a behavior, a disruptive behavior, and we need to deal with that in a certain way. So let's not assume that every disruptive behavior is caused by distress. Sometimes people can just be mean, snotty people. They don't always happen to have to have mental health issues. These are people who contact you over and over again. Will you please print my schedule? Sure. You print the schedule. Oh, I lost my schedule. Will you please print that for me? Sure. Oh, oh God, sorry, I just lost my schedule. Will you print that for me again? At some point, our customer service skills need to also be weighed with, hey, what's going on? And asking them those kinds of questions. Trying to ask open-ended questions like, what's going on? Why do you need, to keep having this printed? That's where it can lead you to, this person has organizational issues. You guys can deal with that, right? You guys can help either send that person to maybe Student Success Center to learn organizational time management kind of issues. You guys can work with them because I think that's something that you guys address. And so not just continuing to give them this thing or being frustrated with it, but maybe looking at the underlying cause of what's going on there. Demands for unreasonable demands for time and attention. So people having this kind of notion that they deserve certain things. Well, I'm a paying student, so I deserve this. I'm paying for this grade, so I deserve an A. Those kinds of things, and that's that kind of attitude that some students are coming in with, and it can be very disruptive. And my take is if we are silent and let that behavior continue, in essence, we're giving the okay for that behavior. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but it's important to kind of nip some of these things in the bud, because this one disruptive behavior could then lead to this disruptive behavior, which could lead to this disruptive behavior. So just kind of noting like, this person is, starting to have issues with this. Okay, what other things could be linked? Obviously, I'll bring my gun and he'll be sorry. We hope that you guys will never be in that situation. But those kinds of things happen. People do make threats. And so we want to give you some skills on how to deal with that. So what to do with disruptive students. So always, always, always talk with these students in a private setting. Don't point them out in the class and like, well, Tommy's having issues with, texting during class. Hey, Tommy, you want to share, what you're texting in there? Don't do that. That causes that person to lose face. And when some of us lose face, we can become very angry, hostile, those kinds of things. So after class, kind of pull that person aside and say, hey, Tommy, you texting in class just isn't working for me. It's also very important that if you're faculty members, that you have very clear definitions of what is appropriate classroom behavior and what is not. I've not ever been a full-time faculty member. I've been an adjunct faculty member at 3 different places. And writing that syllabus, those are things that I forgot was, what am I going to do if a student texts during class? What am I going to do if, their laptops are open and they're Facebooking or, doing whatever? And so having those clear definitions of what do you expect? Do you expect them to be on time in class? Do you expect them to not text? Do you expect them to not be sleeping? Do you expect them to participate? So having those clear definitions in your syllabus is definitely a good place to start. But if there's an issue, bringing that person aside after class or during a quiet time and just talking to them and mention the behaviors. So talk about the behaviors. I notice you texting, not you're so disrespectful to me and you're having all these conversations. It's not about opinions. It's not about personal things. It's about the behavior. I notice that you seem late for class frequently. Those kinds of things. Keep your voice soft and comforting. Be clear and assertive. And I always try to mention assertive and confrontational are not the same things. So when I think of the continuum of communication, there's passive communication, the not saying anything, hopefully it'll get better kind of communication. And then on this side is aggressive, confrontational. We want that middle area, assertiveness. So I'm not going to try to get you guys to being these confrontational, angry, aggressive people. Sometimes it's helpful to try to see things from the student's perspective.